Hello, guys. Welcome to Vahography Talk number 15 live. This is my first live stream with co host Ryan Troy. What's up, Ryan?
How's it going? How's it
And our
going?
very special guest here. We got Jerry Ghionis. What's going on, Jerry?
Great to connect, and you pronounce it correctly. I'm very proud.
Yeah.
But wait a second. What the hell? I'm number 15. Like you chose 14 people before me. Like what the hell?
You know
I'm
what?
just giving you shit, man.
Believe it or not, Jerry, I've done 15 of these talks, and four of them come from down under.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. We did both mats. We did Yervant, you know Yervant,
Of course.
and now you.
Very good. And you're not talking down under metaphorically. We're talking literally like Australia. That's what we're saying.
Australia. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Matt Irwin, Matt Granger, Yervant, and Jerry Ghionis.
Very cool, mate. Great to connect with you guys.
Yeah, great to be here. Great. Thank you for joining us, Ryan. Thank you. I've seen you a few times at WPPI a while back, maybe 5 years ago. I want to say 6 years ago, something like that. You're very approachable, by the way. Very nice. You're a nice guy.
Thank you, man. If you came 5 years, I mean, we probably would have hugged several times. I pretty much hug everybody. So yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
not lingering. It doesn't get awkward. It's just to the point before it gets awkward. That's
That's cool. But you've been in photography for 28 years, right? Right now, 28.
yeah, man. I'm approaching my 29th year professionally. So yeah, I started professionally when I was 20, and I'll be turning 49 this year. So yeah, it's been a long time, man.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Wait, man, you live in Las Vegas, but you're in Australia right now, right?
Yeah, so right now I'm in an apartment that we own, Melissa and I. We live here pre-COVID, 2 months, 3 months of the year, but our base is Las Vegas. So my mind is in Las Vegas, my heart is in Melbourne. So
Nice. Oh,
that's
you're in Melbourne. Okay.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
you
Melbourne.
he's real close to Matt Irwin then.
Yeah, Yerevan too. That's cool, man. But
Jovan is with his studio is within walking distance. My studio was like I live right on the docks on the river, and my studio was two piers away. And Yervant was literally around the corner. His studio is still there. So yeah, it's
so are you guys in the same market?
well, I don't really promote myself here anymore.
Oh,
So
oh, that's right. That's
to
right.
be honest, yeah, I mean, look, if I booked a wedding, I would do it. I don't really promote myself here because I want to spend quality time with family. So, and it's been 2 years since we've come here. So man, yeah, I'd rather soak them in, and I can work any day. I don't see family every day. So yeah.
That's cool. How do you like Vegas? How's living in Las Vegas?
I love it, man. It's so funny. People, think of, oh, you're living in Vegas, and straight away their mind goes to debauchery and gambling and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, that's just a Tuesday. Uh, but we love it. And the reason why we like when we originally went to the US and chose it as our home base, it was between New York and LA. And even though I've been to New York many, many times, Melissa and I, we sort of walked the streets of New York. It happened to be at Christmas time to get an idea of what it's like to live there. Like, let's just pretend we're living here. And I'm not an angry person, never get angry for any reason. And the weather made me angry. I was like a Michelin man. I had friggin' like North Face and 5, 6 layers, and I had the string pulled. My face was like this, and it felt like a cold, wet hand slapping my face continuously. So I'm like, I love you, New York, but I don't want to live here permanently because I'm like, I don't know why people live in a place where it snows. It looks pretty and all, but it's sort of. I thought it was snow was fluffy like cartoons, and it just floated, but it's like little ice cubes. So we chose LA, lived there for about 7 years, and then we've been in Vegas for about 5 years now, almost 5 years, and I love it. I needed a hub that I can travel in and out of very quickly. I felt for the same money I could get a practical mansion in Vegas than an apartment in Beverly Hills, and I wanted a studio, a place where I can shoot, a place where I could teach, and I finally got that. And I realized that it's sort of like probably the most concentrated city in the world of creatives because pre-COVID there was 360 odd shows a night. Now you add the performers, the production people, lighting people, you name it. It's incredible. So in the last couple of years, I've been doing a lot of filmmaking. I've been photographing a lot of performers. So that's been intoxicating. So being around that kind of talent is very, very inspiring, and I love it. And if you want the glitz and the glamour of the strip, you've got it. Like we love music, so we see concerts almost every month. Sporting, obviously we got the Raiders now.
Man? Rock and roll?
I like all types. I like all types, but if you ask me what kind of music, I would say my favorite sort of R&B and jazz.
All
But
right.
my favorite at the moment is Chris Stapleton. I'm obsessed with him. I'm obsessed with Hosier.
That's cool.
Lady Gaga's her jazz concert was amazing. So yeah, man, I just like good music no matter what it is. But generally speaking, I gravitate towards the R&Bs and the Stevie Wonders and the funk and the James Browns and
Well,
all that kind of stuff. So
I'm from LA, and Ryan's from Ohio.
Yeah,
So,
well, I'm in Ohio, but
Oh,
from
you're
New
not from
York,
Ohio.
New York City, yeah. But I'm in Ohio.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I'm still with the snow though. I'm still here with the snow. So I have a question. I know that you do a lot of entertainment as far as your shooting now. You used to do a lot more weddings and portraits. Are you starting to get away? Do you like want to get away from that and do more of what you're doing now with performing arts, or is your heart still in weddings and portraits as well?
Look, I still very actively shoot weddings and portraits. I would say that I'm not actively promoting my weddings. I mean, I've shot well over 1,000, and I used my studio shot 300 a year. I personally shot 100 a year. So I don't think I can handle that health-wise, because I've got a bad back in many different ways. So I don't think I'll ever promote as hard as I used to. But, I do like 12, 15 weddings a year. I'm happy with that. That satisfies my hunger for that genre, and I love it. My heart's there. But I also, there is a freedom to shooting portraits where you don't have the pressure of a wedding day. And so I will, people is my specialty: weddings, portraits, fashion, boudoir, performers. And now I've added filmmaking to my game, especially developed the last couple of years. So yeah, man, that's been my latest obsession is performers. But I'll always do portraits and weddings. Perhaps one day weddings might be too much health-wise, but God willing, and I can get my back sorted, I can have a bit more longevity with that. We'll see what happens. So yeah.
Oh, that's cool, man. You have you developed a very easy, cool way of teaching. And when you're up on, when you're up with the audience, jam-packed room, did that take time to develop, to talking? Like, do you still get nervous in front of like 100, 200 people, or?
I don't get nervous at all. I get excited about what people are going to learn. My heart is, I'm a teacher at heart. When I say teacher, I mean, well, sorry, my elevator pitch is I want to bring out the best in people. Doesn't matter whether it's with photography, whether it's teaching photography, or whether it's personal development, mentorship. For me, it doesn't matter what vehicle it is, but generally it's within our photography community. So that's my elevator pitch. But man, like my biggest audience is probably 4,000 or 5,000 at the Grand Garden Arena at WPPI at its peak. And it was amazing, like the problem back then. So the funny thing was that the night before I spoke, I was watching a John Bon Jovi concert, and I was on stage like where Bon Jovi sang the night before. The problem was the audience started like about 100 meters or 50 meters, 50 yards from the stage. So the energy was tough. So what I did is I ended up bringing some people off the stage to bridge the gap between me and them. So mastering, which is always, you'll never truly master, but mastering how to control a crowd. And in my humble perspective, I try to make people laugh, cry, and hold their breath. Mastering the navigation of an audience, also with as I'm photographing or whatever, is a very important art form, which I try to do. And so yeah, so that was probably my biggest audience, and then I've had an audience of 10. So it depends on what I'm doing, but I love it. I really, really enjoy the process.
That's what I'm saying. You're so like you're just a natural up there, man. Are you sure you're not a singer or musician?
Well, I do love to sing. If you know me personally, you'll know that I love to sing. And when I was 15, I was either going to be a singer, or a photographer. So now I just sing when I can.
I see that in you. I knew that. I knew you would, because you're a natural on stage, man. Just like me. I
Now,
used to play the drums. I used to perform, but I don't know if I can
Awesome.
talk in front of 200-300 people, you know. So
so I heard you speak a lot about, you know, your back as far as how it's affecting work and things like that. Would you be comfortable one day, maybe in the future, if you had to give up shooting and just be a full-time teacher? Is that something that you would want to do, or would you always want to shoot forever?
Oh hell no! I would shoot forever. Even if I was wheelchair bound, I would still shoot. I perhaps wouldn't shoot a wedding, but it's in my blood. And there's people. It's funny because some people say, "Well, Jerry's only a teacher now." And I go, "Dude, I have a photography subscription training website, and I was one of the first, if not the first in the industry to do it, like 13, 14 years ago. I release brand new content every single week for the past 13, 14 years. I don't know anyone who's done that. And I'm not boasting. I'm actually saying, shit, that's a lot of work. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. But I can prove that I'm an active photographer because I show people every week, weddings, portraits, fashion, boudoir, performers, you name it, I share it. I may not do it publicly through my social media channels because often I'll have a break from social media and then I'll reignite it. But my first priority is to my clients, whether it's a paying photographer who wants to learn from me, or obviously even more of a priority is actually clients that pay for my services. But being in Vegas has been great because people will often fly to me and then I can give them a great experience and do a portrait for a full day. I even style them. So I'm often styling my clients, whether it's fashion or just your average Joe and Jane, you know. So it's been fun to have that base as well. But man, I'll be photographing till to the day I die and teaching as well. For me, it just goes hand in hand. You know, there's if a new generation is not taught certain skills, or perhaps how do I say, you know, like if a new generation teaches a new generation, but they don't know the foundation of what makes a great photograph, great light, posing is considered a dirty word in our industry. All these different things, I think that there's going to be people that pass the torch properly rather than let's me make a quick buck. You know what I mean? So for me, I still make my main income as a working professional. So yeah, that is what it is, man.
you mentioned posing, and I wanted to ask you about that because you're probably one of the best at posing bride and grooms. I mean, I watch your videos and I learn from them like on a daily. Did you develop that skill, or did you, I mean, how did that come? Like you just know how to angle the bride, the light, and it's like you know it's amazing. Like,
Well, I appreciate that. It's just practice. At the end of the day, it's not like you're born out of the womb knowing posing. I think the only thing that you're born with that helps photography, especially with people, is obviously personality, charisma, empathy. I think that empathy is the most underrated thing in photography. I always try to teach empathy, as in be a bit more empathetic as to who you're photographing. In other words, if you shoot through the eyes of a loved one, you'll only ever see beauty. At the same time, you can photograph through the eyes of a saint, but also you need to shoot with the technique of a master. So, but you'll never truly master any craft, really, especially when it comes to something creative. There's no such thing as perfection per se, but for me, perfection is the execution of my desired result. So for me, it's just continuously to practice. Now, have I got it wrong at the start of my career, and do I continue to get it wrong sometimes? Yeah, of course, but I recognize what didn't work, but I also pick and choose when I'm happy to not where that emotion beats the perfection. Does that make sense? Like if I'm in a rush, hey guys, lean forward, chins up, lean together. Okay, perfect. Ooh, next. Okay, next family. Boom, boom, boom. You know,
Right.
like I'm not going to pose every finger. Like just get that shit done. You know. So for me, that's fine. But then when I have time to craft it, I think where people go wrong, why they think that posing is stuffy and boring and mechanical, because they add no emotion to it. So what I do is I have 5 steps to a great photograph. I light it. I find the good light or create the good light. Then I work out location. Then so lighting, posing, then the background, then technique, and then the emotion. So what I do is that So you find the good light or create the good light, then work out where you're going to photograph, then pose accordingly. If you don't add emotion that sometimes will break the perfection of a shot, the lack of perfection is actually what makes that pose or shot look real. Hence, it's sort of like pose photojournalism. But if you don't pose or don't light and you just sit there and hope for the best or just walk this way and everything's backlit, all that shit's going to look the same or not refined, or you have to rescue it in Photoshop, which is fine. People make a great living out of that stuff. I just like to craft, think of it like I like to, sometimes most likely drive the car manually, and there'll be times where I'm on autopilot and automatic, but I want to craft the photograph, and that emotion at the end might not even be that I evoked with what I said. It's maybe how I said it. Does that make sense? Like, it's how you say it rather than even what you say, or a combination of both.
Yeah, it's capturing that emotion. I mean, you do it very well. With me, it's like if posing, if I'm pissed off at a wedding, right? Like, bridal party, whatever, they piss me off. My weakness is that leads to me blanking out. You know what I mean? Is like I run out of poses because I just want to get the hell out of there. But man, that's I think if I were to pick one thing that I need to work on is not running out of the posing, because some brides they don't cooperate, they don't want to pose. So
well, my encouragement to you is that perhaps you're running out of patience, but don't forget that you are dealing with usually an unsophisticated audience. They don't dissect photographs the way photographers dissect photographs. I think that we try to spend too much time pleasing other photographers rather than our clients. If you're running out of poses, don't think of it like that. Think of it like how many ways, and again, whether it's same sex, heterosexual, doesn't really matter. How many ways can someone hug another person? Like,
or
if
kiss.
you look at it, or kiss, or whatever it may be, just think about it. Like, what I do is I liken pose like body parts to digits of a phone number. I call it a phone number technique. So if you get a couple facing each other, looking at the camera, holding hands at the front, that's the very first phone number ever invented. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Great. If you change one digit, you could do the exact same pose again. In other words, they're all facing the camera, holding hands. Then one person can put their head in. You can now put the hand on the hip, on the forearm, on the arm, on the chest, on the back of the head, holding the veil, holding the flowers, or portrait, whatever. Now you've got millions of combinations. Now, both heads turn in. You can put the hand in the exact same way. One foot changes. You can put the hand the exact same way. You've got millions of combinations. What you're doing, and most of us do at the start of our career, or if we're getting a bit stale or we're getting impatient, we're dialing the same phone number, expecting a different result, and we blame the couple, where it's probably up to us to get a bit of variety. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
the bride is pissing off.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, everybody's, I mean, like I said, like with the bride and groom, everybody looks good a different way. They're not going to be the same shape. They're not going to be the same size. So that's pretty much
exactly.
So before we started this, I asked people on my Instagram for different comments or different questions that they had to ask. And it's this one that I am real curious about. And it's, when you first started photography, right? Were there any books or mentors that you had that helped you go along the way? And what do you feel about newer photographers looking up to other photographers? Because some people feel that your creativeness needs to come from within, and you don't never need to really like copy, let's say, what another photographer is doing and make that your style. So I know it's like a two-part question, but yeah, books, mentors, and what do you feel about mentors?
Yeah, look, I think if you read any business book on any industry, a quick shortcut to success is finding a mentor. Now, whether it's actually someone you know personally or someone that you learn from, either by a book or by a digital content or YouTube, or it doesn't matter what it is. The fact is that it's a shortcut to success. That's just simply a fact. Like, why wouldn't you ask someone who's been on that road before you to learn from their successes, mistakes, and all those different things? So that's just a fact. Going back to the original thing, when I started, I assisted a photographer for about 1.5 years with no pay, just carried bags. And I learned more from not touching a camera. And that was in the old days of medium format. So that was film and 10 shots per roll of film. And so it was better that I hold bags and I watch how someone, controls the day, as in how do you, I say that pragmatically, just emotionally detached from it, is how do you work with clients, parents who are anxious, or bride who's young or inexperienced, or whatever it may be, or a groom who's disinterested, like all those things that you have to do. And then slowly, I was given a bit of responsibility, a groom's coverage or a bride's or whatever. And then and so that one photographer, that my only sort of boss in the industry back then, was who I learned from. And then my mantra since then and to now, and you may, if you've heard me teach before, you may have heard that you don't have to be the best. You simply have to be better than last week. Too many people are spending 99% of their lives trying to be the 1%, spending 99% of their life feeling hollow and unsatisfied with their life because they're not the 1%. I'm like, why don't I just be happy? Like, one step at a time. So for me, it's, my last week's effort is my inspiration. Now, earlier today, I did a little Instagram live. I was doing a live feed to my group, to a training group. And then I decided to do an Instagram live feed on my book collection because I've got a stack of books here. So that's the second part of your question is about being inspired and all that kind of stuff. Now, anyone who says, I don't need any inspiration, I want to be my own person, blah, 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 is absolute bullshit, because you are the product of every movie that you've seen, every TV show, every billboard that's gone by, life around you. You cannot help but be inspired by everything around you. It doesn't even have to be photography. So what I'm getting at, like, unless you're a Tibetan monk and you've never been on the internet, you've never seen anyone, and then all of a sudden someone teaches you photography and you could call yourself unique. At the end of the day, someone has probably done what you believe is unique way before you, probably with a piece of marble and a chisel, better than you, long before photography was even invented. So now, I'm not saying that to be discouraging. It's quite the opposite. I think too many of us, we get intimidated by fellow artists. Like, I'll never be able to do that, never be able to reach that. Well, of course you can. But the fact is that you have to form the habits that contribute to a creative process that gets you to a specific way. Now, most of us will start by imitating somebody. I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. That's a shortcut to success. Let me do what I have to do what I want to do. So we start by imitating. That turns into emulation, which all of us will do for our whole careers. And there'll be a time in your life here and there that you might just, in fact, innovate, where you grab ingredients that have been done before and you produce something that somehow is uniquely your recipe of a dish that's been served, but you're adding that extra flavor that no one has thought of. That's great. I'm saying don't strive to be absolutely unique in every aspect, because you're just not going to reach it and you'll spend your life not satisfied with your effort. Just, follow that path and trust the process. So for me, I'm obsessed with the creative process more than the result of making the money, more than the result of having awards or a recognition. I am today, still to this day, obsessed with the creative process. So I encourage your followers, listeners to do the same.
Yeah, I've noticed that, you don't really care about when people say you're one of the top wedding photographers, you're just like, oh, okay, great. I'm happy. That's good, man. You're a very humble guy. And I love that about you. I have a question. I had a photographer ask me, he's stuck in this certain market where I guess has cheap customers come to him, and he's looking for a way, because his work is up there. His work is good. He has great work, but he's stuck in this market, and he was asking me what to do to kind of venture out to that kind of high-end market to make more money. And he's stuck in this bubble. What do you say to that? What kind of advice can you give to a photographer like that?
Well, it's a common problem, but let's establish the problem first. The problem is that a photographer is in the market, and people shop on price, and they have to be cheap to just compete, right? So the problem with most of those kinds of photographers, because I've done lots of workshops and mentored a lot of people, the common denominator is that these people don't believe in themselves, and they think they only can compete with price, and they don't market effectively. In fact, they don't market at all. They might do a lazy Facebook page. They might have a lazy Instagram feed, and they might go the wedding wire and the knot and hope for the work to come in. That is not marketing. That's barely breathing. You have to breathe. So I'm saying is market yourself pretending like you might go hungry one day. And guess what's happened the last couple of years? Many of us have gone hungry. Now, what I'm getting at is, like, I to this day will constantly ally myself with people with 1 degree of separation between me and the work that I want. In other words, what kind of bridal wear designer has the kind of work that I want? Well, why wouldn't I spoil people in that kind of position of power? Because if they refer me 20 weddings, 10 people call me and I book 5 of them, there's 5 weddings in the year that I wouldn't have gotten. If I have to go to, 10 menswear suit places and one of them refers me, they give me 5 weddings and I book 2. Well, that's $4,000 each. There's $8,000 a year. It's all numbers in the end. I think too many of us take business too personally. Whereas, and when I started in my career, I always thought, what's in it for me? I say now, what can I do for you? So
that's a good one. I like that.
So like, that's what I'm getting at is we have to, there are like even photographing a wedding, or what do you do on Instagram afterwards? Well, first of all, you should be following every one of the bridal party members on all the social media platforms. You should get their Instagram handle, TikTok, whatever, Facebook, whatever. Follow them in every capacity. Know who they are, so you know which face belongs to which particular person. Then you post progressively the week after the wedding. And then if they post a cute puppy that they just bought, press like. If they, whatever, like you're keeping them in the forefront of your brain, because if there's 20 people in the bridal party, there's 20 couples that are all single, or 20 people that are single that can mean 20 potential weddings. If you make an impression on the day with your work and your charisma and your experience, then all of a sudden you like their photographs, do whatever, all of a sudden they get married, who are they going to think of? So social media is not about just showing off. Social media is about connecting with your clients and building a relationship with your audience, not just look how great I am, or look at the food that I ate, or look at my feet by the pool of a holiday that I went at. It's building a relationship, So yeah, and price-wise, people think that they can't charge more because their photography is not that great. There is a ridiculous amount of people in this industry making a killing with mediocre photography. And it's funny because I've met people say, damn, that person down the street, they're nowhere near as good as me. They get all the work. And I'm like, slow down for a second.
That's so true.
They'll say, well, what the hell? And I'm like, well, you should be not jealous of these people. Learn from them. That's genius. If you can create an incredible business with shitty work, you are a genius.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that are great, but they're great marketers, but their photography skills are not, up there. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, but who's more successful? That's what I'm trying to say. Look, so people measure success in different ways. That's right. So your work will be better with every single wedding, but at the end of the day, if you can feed yourself, feed your family, maybe quit that day job and do this full time, and feed your habit, your passion, buy your toys, whatever you want to do in this industry, you don't wait for the work. That's ridiculous. Why would you wait? Like, you're sitting there waiting like a fool behind the computer. I'm like, well, you got to get out there, do your SEO, fix up your website, shoot some portfolio shots, build that thing. And now in COVID, if things close down again, which in parts of the world there are, like, you shouldn't be sitting there like boasting about how many Netflix shows you're doing. You should be boasting about how many things off a to-do list you're doing that improves your clientele, So
I shouldn't ask you about your Netflix go-to shows.
You should. Why not?
you like Ozark? You seen Ozark?
I love Ozark. Oh my God, yes. In 2 days, I think the last season's happening.
Seriously,
so yes, I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
Yeah,
what was our latest obsession that we had, baby?
Squid Games.
Squid Games was fun. I think that there was a bit of overacting, but I think that the cheesiness added to the story. But Yellowstone, I think, is like probably the best show on TV at the moment. I think Yellowstone is the best characters, great storyline, just badass people and stuff. So yeah, awesome.
Were you into Dexter? I really didn't like the ending.
I just finished.
You didn't like the ending of the new one?
Spoiler alert. Okay, I guess some people haven't seen it, but
wait, you didn't like the ending of the new one?
The
Are
new
you
one, I
saying that?
hated it.
Oh,
Well,
I
I'm not gonna
loved it.
say what happened. But never
Yeah,
mind.
but I wanted it to end like that. I hated the way the original Dexter ended, but the way this one ended, perfect.
I'm with you, Ryan. I mean, like my heart said one thing, my mind said the other, but I actually didn't mind the end. The only reason why I liked the ending for the show. I just loved the show and I wanted to continue. So I think that
Yes.
I didn't like the ending because it ended.
Right, right,
But I mean, the next generation, without spoiling it, could be the new show. So he's pretty
right.
cool. You never know; he might come
Yeah.
back and so
Yep.
and then I don't know if I'm spoiling it, but then okay,
That
Dexter might play another. I'll just say something. Dexter might play another character if it continues with the second generation. I'll leave it at that.
I know exactly what you
yeah,
mean
but
by that too.
that kid was annoying, dude. Sorry to say, man. That kid was
Well, he
annoying.
was he was supposed to be. I think that was his role. If you
Yeah.
want, okay, for those watching right now, if anyone wants to see a masterful movie where every single like I looked at it as a series of photographs bunched together, masterful. The French Dispatch. Have you guys seen it?
Nope.
I haven't checked it out, but I will
Wes,
put that
Wes,
on the
okay,
list.
you guys know Wes Anderson, right? Like the very famous quirky director.
Wes
So if you
Anderson.
don't know him, like he's just one of those. Basically, every actor in the world would kill to be on one of his movies, right? The Royal Tenenbaums he made, and among many other, like the what's that Royal, the other one, the hotel something. Anyway, guys, watch it. I'm telling you, if you want to see crafting at its absolute quirky best, every scene in that movie could be a standalone Gold Award photograph. The French Dispatch.
French
Quirky,
Dispatch.
fun, and masterful. Just, I'm obsessed. I watched it last night. It was amazing.
I
Yeah.
have a question.
Yeah.
Because it seems like you're in the shows and stuff like that, video films, all of that. Now, we didn't touch on this, but I would say it's obvious for you guys that don't know. He is a Nikon ambassador. Now, photography is something that you're into. What about video? What about production of videos when it comes to Nikon cameras? And then also, are you comfortable with where Nikon is right now when it comes to video?
Okay, great question. And I'm not going to give you an expected Nikon ambassador answer. I'll just tell you the truth because I'm all about the truth.
Nice.
Even though that people will say whatever you say, Jerry, is biased. I'm like, well, people. I played a pretty heavy role in the Z9 campaign recently. A lot of my videos were featured, and people would say,
That was
"Well, you're an
awesome, by the way.
ambassador. You shouldn't be talking about the camera." I'm like, so you telling me that a working professional who uses professional gear can't talk about the gear that they've used? I mean, that's ludicrous. That's like saying to Nadal, don't dare talk about your tennis racket because it's biased because you use it. Well, shit, duh. You know what I mean? I mean, if I claimed that Nikon was the best in every feature of every camera system, well, yeah, no one can claim that. Okay, so let's just put that out there for the moment. Filmmaking has always been part of my personal journey because even at the start of my career, we had photo and video, and I sold video. I knew back in the VHS tape days, even VHS-C and the Super 8 or whatever it was. So I sold video. I sold cinematic video films, and I sat behind the editor's desk since the start of my career 28 years ago. I understand the process, the complexity of music and color, harmony, and all that kind of stuff. In physically doing it myself, because that experience turned into filming behind the scenes of my shoots, so that again I've got a huge library of shoots that the fly on the wall approach to my shoots. I sort of have been involved in that. Now, the last couple of years, I've been working with Jason. Jason, he works with me and for me. We have gone all in filmmaking. Now, I had a couple of choices, right? So let's face it, Nikon has not been in the game in like when cinematographers talk about their go-to cinema cameras, Nikon hasn't really been in that conversation. Now, being a Nikon ambassador, now I could go to Red cameras, I can go to other camera systems, whatever. that, say, Nikon wasn't capable of in terms of what I did. But we decided to stick with the Nikon camera system. We did at the start of the pandemic, we did a couple of music videos using the sixes and the 6.2s. We did elevated our production value with 4K using the Nikon camera system. So that was all fantastic. And as a photographer, though, I never really used what most photographers were complaining about who use a Nikon system, that, you know, Nikon's autofocus system or the eye tracking didn't really work for them. It wasn't really my problem because I never really relied upon it. I'm very much a controlled focus recompose shooter. I'm very much a move the focus point to the eye. Like I don't really know the difference. Like ignorance was bliss to me. I don't really know what the other camera systems were doing. So I can't claim who's the best and worst and whatever. Don't know. But from what other people said, Nikon was a bit behind, blah, blah, blah. Then the Z9 came out, and it was given to me amongst a handful of photographers in the US to sort of say, hey, Jerry, go play. And I said, and they knew that I was doing music videos and I had done a lot more videos. So they said, Jerry, we want you to produce some cinema stuff and 8K stuff. And I'm like, great. So with the help of Jason and Melissa and a couple other people, we went out there and we not only did a music video, we did a performer video, which there's one that's yet to be seen or released. That's going to happen probably the next few weeks, which we're excited about. And I trusted the focus system. So from going from zero, as in never relying on when I'm saying autofocus, I use autofocus, but not the AF or,
Right.
small area, AF, large area. I never really used that to know the difference. So because I was given this camera, push the limits, Jerry, I said, great. So here I am photographing probably the best breakdancer in the world on AFC. And he walked into the scene, focused on him. I was at f2 or 1.8 or whatever I was. And he walked in, and this was in a dark room with fog going where it's a bit harder to focus. And he just started flipping and doing whatever. And I've got footage where I've recorded my EVF where you physically see the result of it. So for me, having gone from never really relying upon that and then going to the Z9 was exceptional. And guys, I'm here to say, the other camera systems are amazing as well from what I hear. So I think it's really, really good that the big three camera companies are really, really good because they push each other to be great. At the end of the day, competition is really, really good. I think that too many of us, we wave a certain camera brand flag in people's faces, and there'll always be a better feature out. There'll always be something that the other competition does. At the end of the day, it'll push the camera systems to become better. And guess who benefits? We as the users. And like I said, I think it's funny because I find every Americans, amongst a lot of nations and cultures, treat everything like a sport. Oh yeah, go Nikon, go this, go that, whatever. And I'm like, dude, like you'll win some, you lose some, and people win the Super Bowl, and then they won't. But it seems like, from what I've heard from other people, and in terms of who know the different systems, that the Z9 is sort of back in the race, and in terms of the eye focus and everything, and also should be considered within the cinematic world as a serious option. For me, I've used all of those, the 6s and the 6.2s as my go-to camera. And I also don't want to get to the level where I would need a red camera or anything, because I'd rather those small to medium-sized productions, because I'm still a photographer. I do call myself a filmmaker because I've made films. I just don't want to. I feel like with the Z9 especially, and as well as with the performers, I feel I can walk into a shoot and feel very confident that I will not need a focus puller and rely on that system to pretty much capture anything. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm excited about it. So
yeah, I think you answered Jeffrey Neville's question, because he asked about how do you feel about hybrid versus dedicated video camera. I think you pretty much answered that. But I have a question about, since you're on Nikon Ambassador, Ryan's question, I have some questions about it. I mean, the other day we were talking about Nikon ambassadorship, and when you started being an ambassador, did they approach you or you sought them out? How does that work?
I don't look. I certainly didn't approach anyone. It's not something that you can really canvas. and everyone's putting their hand up to be an ambassador for almost every camera company. It's sort of like people, oh, I'm much better than them. I should be up there. I should be up there. At the end of the day, there'll always be someone better. There'll always be someone worse. There is a combination of elements that companies look for. If you're an ambassador, you certainly have to be of a certain caliber, I believe. I think that's important. There also needs to be diversity. I think that's really important to represent, at least reflecting, like if America is made up of 20% of minorities, there should be at least that. There should be at least a good representation of male, female as well. There's a whole mixture of things that need to be in there. I'm not here to tell you the complexities of what management does and everything. Look, I grew up with Nikon. At one point, I changed camera systems because I just needed more megapixels for a very important fashion shoot that paid a lot of money, which I did for a few years. And then I dropped a camera, one of my cameras, and I needed a second camera. Now, a year before that, I had won a European Photographer of the Year competition, and part of that prize was a Nikon D3S with a lens. And that was a pivotal moment. What I later learned, that because I didn't know any better, Nikon had sort of dragged back and then caught up with a D3 and the D3S, and I'm like, oh shit, the high ISO quality, the focus, all that stuff. It was a pivotal moment, and I compared files. I'm like, this is a no-brainer. So I switched, and this is long before I changed, that I was offered an ambassadorship. Now, because of my profile, and I've traveled the world many times teaching, and I've won some awards and other stuff, I was on their radar, and they approached me and said, how do you feel becoming an ambassador? I said, I love your camera system. Let's do it. And then that was it. And if I sincerely did not get the results that I needed to do the job that I did, I just would say, guys, I can't be an ambassador because I need to change camera systems.
So listen, because of your first camera, I made sure I brought it right here, just so you feel a little comfortable with this interview. You said you started with what was it, a Olympus camera that you got from your father, your brother, then you end up, I don't know, throwing it away. But your first Nikon was the FM2.
That's right. That's right.
I did my research, right?
Well, it's funny because I've been interviewed a lot about what my first camera was, and I actually thought it was an Olympus, and my brother corrected me, and I don't know how I got that in my brain, but he said to me, no, it was an MG. I'm like, a Pentax MG. I'm like, oh shit, all these years I've been saying an Olympus. So I believe, so Pentax MG was my first camera, and then it only photographed in a program mode. It didn't photograph manual. So that's when I went to the K1000, which is what every photographer sort of started with back in the day, because it was like a workhorse, they called it, and you could drop it, you could use it. And it was very much conducive of learning. And then a lot of people graduated to the FM2, or the FM, whatever it was at the time. And yes, so that's basically, that was my first Nikon camera, the FM2. And my first digital camera was the Nikon F5, sorry, the Kodak DCS 760.
Okay.
Modeled after the F5. It had a big camera, the big chunky ass friggin' ass on the bottom. That was worth like 20 grand when I bought it in 2000, 2001. It was stupid. Yeah.
So, all right. So, like I said, I have this camera, and before the Z9, because I'm pretty sure that's probably your main camera you shoot with now, correct? The Z9? Or are you still on the Z7 too?
Well, it was delivered to me in Vegas while I'm here in Australia. So I got it for a little time, and then as in to do the campaign, but I had to give it back. And now I'm here, and the Z9 is just waiting in a nice little box, ready to be opened up for me as well. So it will be my go-to camera of choice, along with the 6s and the 7s, and depending on what it is. But I can't really see myself using anything else other than the Z9. I use the Z6s for filmmaking, but the Z9, the capabilities are amazing. So yeah, I'm curious to know where the other cameras will fit in that world, but
right. And
I don't know what's coming. So yeah,
that's what I wanted to ask you, because my main camera that I shoot with is a Z7. I cannot afford the Z9 at this current part of my life. But what I was wondering is, since you used the Z9, and since your main camera was a Z7 too, do you think anything will trickle down to the Z7 too? We know about the dual processors, and I feel like we haven't got to the point where Nikon has pushed its limit, especially when we've seen the update with the original Z6 that helped the autofocus more. Now we got two of these same processes in the Z7 II. Do you believe that Nikon has pushed the Z7 II to its limits, or do you think it's a little bit more in there that we could squeeze from it?
Look, I've spoken to the engineers, and I know enough to know that the new processor in the Z9 is capable of so much more. I don't know how many firmware updates there'll be on the 6 and the 7 that will dramatically improve what there is. If it's any improvement, I think it'll be, and I don't know this for a fact, it'll be incremental. It'll be probably not ridiculously noticeable. It won't be a dramatic change, in my humble opinion, from what I know, truthfully. With the new processor, there's no doubt there's probably going to be, like many people are calling the Z9 the D5 equivalent, and what is now the D850 equivalent, if it's not the 6.2 or the 7.2. Now, whether it's going to be a 6.3, a 7.3, or a Z8, we don't know. I don't know. And if I did know, I wouldn't tell you because I can't. So
blink one time.
Oh, really?
blink twice if it's a Z8 coming.
I say that all the time to the Nikon higher ups, and they always joke, and they still can't tell me. So, but yeah, so I mean, just logically, if there's a new processor and it's in the Z9, logically, being a full frame sensor with all these new capabilities, logically that will trickle down to another generation of cameras. Again, whether it's a 6.3, 7.3 or a Z8 or whatever it's going to be, and when that is, I don't know. It's just a matter of when. So all I say is that if your camera system works for you at this point within the genre that you're working with, it's fantastic. You don't need to upgrade. I'll tell you now, now the Z9 is a beautiful luxury. Absolutely. Now for the price though, for $5.5 and all the things that it can do, it's compelling. But if your camera system can do what you need it to do in this stage of your life and your journey and your genre, have at it, fantastic. And then if you feel like you want to upgrade because the new camera can do what your current one can't, or you just got a bit of extra money and you got all the money in the world and you want to do it, go for your life. Have at it. So,
Yeah.
I think too many of us get a bit geek out on gear, but I geek out on the process and connecting with my clients and also being profitable. All those things I think are more important than the
gear.
than a toggle.
A lot of us love gear though. What do you think about the build quality of the Z9 versus like a D6?
Well, I mean, you're talking about a flagship camera compared to the smaller one, so it feels stronger in your hand. You're looking at I don't know how you would liken it to a car, but one's a nice BMW, the other one's sort of a Ferrari. You sort of can't really compare. It's just made differently, and of course you'll pay accordingly. So, but,
I was saying the D6.
Oh, the D6.
Yeah.
Look, I don't have experience with the D6. My last DSLR was a D5.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I saw, it looks pretty much the same, just a few extra different, bits and pieces in quality. As far as the 6, yeah, I think it's probably, on paper it's the same, maybe a little bit smaller, and certainly a ridiculous amount more features. You can't really compare them. I mean, the mirrorless technology, let alone, no shutter mechanism, no mechanical shutter. I mean, it opens up a world of different things and smaller body and all that kind of stuff.
Do I have one or two more questions about an ambassador, because I have people asking me this all the time.
That's okay, no problem.
Do you get paid from Nikon?
I get paid for different things, but I think we're one of the few ambassadors, from what I understand, in the industry where you have to buy your own gear. So,
okay. Right.
So if we like the gear, we have to buy it. Now, are we consigned gear here and there? Yes. Do we have to purchase it so we own it forever? Yes. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's very.
But
interesting.
I'm proud of that. Like I said, it makes you invested, because you could become an ambassador because one of the big camera brands can come up to you and say, "We'll give you all the gear, be an ambassador." Well, you got to, do you believe in the system? Like, You're not going to wave a flag if you don't like the system, or if it's just, I've had camera companies offer me a ridiculous amount of money to represent them. I don't use their gear. I could sell out, so to speak. And I'm not blaming anyone that does that. Quite simply, if you need to feed your family, have at it. Go for your life. But I have to believe in the brand. And like I said, truthfully, if I didn't believe that Nikon offered me what I needed to within my genre, I just wouldn't use them. But shit, if you look at the likes of Joe McNally, who can do what he does, or Andrew Hancock, or I mean, there's just so many incredible photographers that I know as friends. I mean, the gear's not normally the problem. It's usually the person. And I know we like to compare gear, and I'm just not that kind of person. I could never be a reviewer of cameras. It's just, I'd rather review someone's work, or look at the story, or look at the emotion attached to it and all that stuff. So, I like the gear, don't get me wrong, it's great, but I quickly get over, that stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, let me just, what can I get? What story can I tell? How can I create?
That's cool.
As for me, it's just a vehicle. It's just a vehicle to get to where I want to go,
It's cool. Like musicians, because I play the drums, musicians are always concerned about, oh, I'm gonna get free drums, I'm gonna get a free guitar, So what are you you're full-time mirrorless, no more DSLR, right?
I sold them all, dude. I wanted to keep them for posterity, but I ended up selling them because I had all my cameras. You have no idea. Like about a year and a half ago, I had a 500, a 750, an 850, an 810, a D5, D850. I had probably 10 lenses, and I'm like, and then BNC Camera in Vegas, they have this cash for cameras every quarter. And I'm like, you know what? I've got no kids. No one's going to give a shit about what camera I use, and if I still have that. If I had my first camera different, I still have my FM2 and everything. The DF I hardly shot with it, but it looks sexy, so I'll keep that one. But then I went to the camera store and I got like freaking 20 grand or something for my gear. And I'm like, yeah, I'd rather 20 grand that I can buy new toys than sit there and just have gear sitting there doing nothing. So yeah, I've sort of learned to be emotionally detached from the gear, unless it's really meaningful for my life or something, you know what I mean? And the D850 I was going to keep because I shot the global campaign for that in the wedding and the fashion industry. So that was important, but I'm like, you can't take away that fact that I did that. And the camera having it, I'm like, oh, I can show someone I was walking around the house. Well, that's the camera I shot the camera with. Oh, I don't really care. I'd rather just get some money and play with some new gear. So
yeah, I'm a big fan of like top great photographers. So if I was at that camera shop, I would say, hey man, the salesman, this was used to be Jerry Ghionis D850, huh? Let's tap in for another $500 on the prize.
Well, what's funny is people are saying to me, you should sell on eBay and tell them that you use it. And to be honest, at one point I was going to do that and do like a bit of an auction and give the money to charity. But I'm like, I saw the date on the thing and I'm like, oh, let me just take it here. And I needed some new gear and stuff. So I've got a studio in Vegas and I've got lots of gear. And also if you're into film, the amount of money that gear costs, and monitors and jibs and sliders, and whenever you get one, you get the next one, you get the next drone, and it's never ending. So cinema is filmmaking is that's a beast. That's a beast.
Now I also got a question from Instagram. And listen, I don't mean to put you in this position because I couldn't imagine being the person who asked this question as well. But if you didn't shoot Nikon, what system do you think you would shoot? I know it's hard to think about. I know.
No. I would just be honest. If Nikon just wasn't right for me, I would rent. I would ask all my friends that photograph with the other systems. I would ask him, to be honest, I'd probably ask them, but I would still rent cameras on paper what suits my genres. And I'd rent them first, play with them. If they suit me and they give me the results and I'll compare, then I will choose that system. That's what I would do. If it wasn't Nikon, I would do that. And I would do that now anyway. Like if I was a brand new photographer and I was on my iPhone, but I wanted to take it seriously, I'd probably rent them all first and then have a look. Rather than just do it because you're rooting for Nikon or you're rooting for someone else, Yeah, that's what I would do.
You can't be film with holding another brand, can you? Like, you can't be seen using another brand of camera, right? Being an ambassador.
Well, I mean, look, obviously, if you're an ambassador for Rolex and you've got an Omega watch on you, that's pretty bad. So that goes without saying. If can you imagine? I love Diet Coke, and then all of a sudden you got Pepsi Max. I mean, that's just a given. The only time that it's okay as an ambassador to use another camera system is when you can't achieve the results within your genre. Perfect example, you've got filmmakers who your client insists on a red camera or a Scarlett or whatever whatever it is, then so be it. You sort of have to do it. Do you advertise that camera? Probably not. Are you allowed to do it within the scope of the company? Well, sure. You got to make a living. So there's it's sort of just it's logical. It's sort of like a logical approach to that equation. It's not like, well, I mean, I shoot with the iPhone. Am I going to get canned for photographing with the iPhone? Everyone photographs with an iPhone. Even even the higher ups at Nikon will use their iPhone camera or their Android camera to photograph their everyday life. It doesn't mean they're going to be fired. So
Yeah.
it's just logical and a thoughtful approach to being an ambassador. You are representing that brand, and you should act accordingly, not only with your photography, but just your ethics and whatever. And I don't make the decisions as to who's in or out or whatever, but I think that we all have to, if you're representing a brand, then your behavior without that camera affects, no different than, when a high profile person does something wrong, then in their ambassadorships for different brands, they'd lose them because they make the brand look bad. And that's fine. That's fair.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's talk about your YouTube videos, Jerry Ghionis on YouTube. I love your tutorials. They're so much so much information there. You put it all out there, man, and I appreciate that. Will you
Thank
be
you.
making more videos, tutorials in 2022 on a regular basis?
Yeah, man. So here's the conundrum. So the conundrum is that I have my priority is on my paid subscription based website. So for those who don't know, Ghionis.com, Ghionis, Ghionis.com. For $25 a month, you can access all my 13 years of content for $25. And if you just let it go, it'll just happen every month, and you get access to videos every single week. So my priority is on that and other educational offerings that I have as independent products. I thought to myself, I never really focused on YouTube, which is stupid because it's such a big platform. I mean, hello, we're in 2022. Anything you want to learn, you go to YouTube. So I was encouraged, hey, Jerry, make some videos and see what happens. So I lazily had 25,000 followers on YouTube. I made 7 videos last year, 7, and I got to 150,000 subscribers. I'm like, oh shit, I should really do something with this. So there's no doubt that at one point I think I'll share a lot more stuff and probably recycle some older stuff. Um, I think there's a specific format on YouTube that's important because you're answering a question, not a topic. It's just you're answering a very specific question. And in my heart, I want to answer it properly and give 5 hours of content, but no one's going to sit there for 5 hours. So what I've learned is that, for example, I've got one there talking about how to pose a couple. Well, there's freaking millions of ways. Well, I'm going to show you one way or 10 ways or 5 ways. So I've sort of overestimated in my brain as to how far I go with it. I think the important thing is to give people what they want. What's going to be a common topic that people will want to listen and learn from. And it proved to me very quickly that, and I don't care about, I've got 150,000 subscribers. I care about, am I making a difference to that many people? So there's part of me that wants to protect it behind a paywall, but another part of me that wants to share it with the world. And inevitably, there'll be a percentage of those people who will buy my product. So, it's one of those things. But yes, the answer to the question, I guess, is yes, I'll certainly be sharing a lot more videos this year. Yeah, and giving people what they want.
So, you spoke about your website and how you do that, and then YouTube. Now, I'm not sure. Have you looked into Skillshare?
Skillshare, no.
I think I personally think that would probably be something really good for you to do, just one course, right? Because there's something like YouTube, but people have to pay, but they pay to see all of these other people. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the tech world. So you got like MKHD and some photographers, and they have like a course there. So when people choose to watch your videos, you get paid for it, and the payout is ridiculous. So maybe you could put like a course of, you know, whatever, how you just said, how you pose this person, or it could be how Jerry poses this person. And then this whole course is just on one thing like that. So you don't have to give them too much, just a little bit. Keep your website, keep pushing your weekly content. And if you want to do YouTube, put your free content out. But yeah, I would definitely say you should look into Skillshare. It's definitely a good place.
Yeah, I'll look into it. I mean, look, I also have a separate educational offerings where there's an all you can eat over here, which is not really perfectly curated in the sense that it's usually fly on the wall approach. You get to watch me at a real shoot. Then I have jerryghionis.com, which is if you want to learn the art of wedding photography, as in you could not be a photographer and do this, you could become a wedding photographer. There's watching me shoot 20 real weddings, and then you can watch the business of wedding photography. If you got those three courses, within a year, you could be a successful wedding photographer if you followed my curated, digestible content. So I'm in both worlds in a sense. I'm in three worlds. There's the free content, there is the subscribed content, and then there is the curated, digestible content if you want to learn this topic properly.
Right.
So yeah, man, I've been doing it for a very, very long time, but yeah, certainly I'll look into it. But yeah, thanks for that perspective.
Do your clients know your stature status in the photography community when you shoot weddings? Usually.
Mhm. Well, it's funny. So yes and no. To be honest, more likely no than yes.
Mm.
What happens is people think that I only get rich and famous weddings or high-end weddings, and it's a lot easier for me because I'm there, everyone sets everything up and I click the button and all that kind of stuff, which is just a stupid cliche. That couldn't be further from the truth. Now, do people Google, they put certain words in their Google bar and my name come up in different searches? Well, yes, I'm proud to say yes. But they don't know what I've done in the industry. They don't really know the awards that I've won. They don't know that I've invented products and I've done this, that, whatever, unless they read my bio. But a lot of people couldn't care less about what you say about yourself. They just care about what your photos look like. So I've done weddings where they have no idea, or there'll be a guest at a wedding that will recognize me and then talk about me. And then all of a sudden the bride goes, "What? You did this? Why didn't you tell me?" I'm like, "Well, there was no need to. You booked me based upon my work. Why would I even tell you?" Now, in my studio in Vegas, I have all my trophies there, but that's second to my work. To be honest, that if I had the not wedding photographer of the year, I don't know if that's even that's a thing, but let's say if I had the not wedding photographer of the year, that would mean more to them than a Grandmaster trophy from WPPI or the ARPP in Australia because they don't know the difference. so,
Yeah.
um, so, so going back to that, yeah. So people are booking me because of my work. Now, ironically, half of my clientele these days are actually photographers, which I'm really proud of. So if they're
Oh, that's cool.
photographers, usually they've come to a seminar of mine, a workshop of mine. They're either getting married, want a portrait, and they don't want to think about, like, they don't want to worry about, is the photographer doing the right job? So I just photograph their wedding or their portrait or their anniversary or whatever. And it's fantastic because they give me complete trust. So in that respect, yes, they know who I am. But again, if my work didn't measure up, they couldn't care less about trophies or awards or anything like that. At the end of the day, I've still got to prove it. If anything, if people come with this high expectation, you at least have to meet them, let alone exceed it. So that's sort of more pressure than is probably desirable from the outset. But I got to say, man, like most of my weddings are normal people. I'm not connected with the coordinators that people know in the US. People still think of me as an Australian photographer. So they don't really align me with the coordinators on the higher end. I do weddings of everyday people, corporate families, suburban working class families. I've just learned how to get more money from existing people, from normal people. So, and I've probably done 5 weddings out of my 1,000 that where you would say money was no object, probably 5. The rest have been those kinds of weddings, which I'm very proud of because, you know, and I'd much rather those weddings. I've got to say, like, I'd much rather go to a wedding where they hug you and they kiss you, they feed you, they give me time, rather than go those uppity weddings that it's all about the spectacle and they couldn't care less about the story or the emotion.
Nice.
I wouldn't wish upon anyone. I've seen other photographers that are friends of mine do celebrity weddings. Hell no, I would not want to do that. I have no desire to have no time and photograph cutlery rather than grandma who's got one foot in the grave. Do you know what I mean? Like, for me, I'm too empathetic, and I'm not saying that every wedding like that is shallow and there's no emotion, but I'm saying though it's more about the spectacle than the family itself. And it might be fun to photograph and give me great locations, but I'd much rather photograph on a plasterboard that's painted near a window with a family that gives me time and shows me the emotion, and it's not all about the you know, the chair covers and stuff. So I don't know, and it's not me being cynical. I'm very empathetic. I love the families that I photograph, and I wouldn't give it up for a different clientele for the world.
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned celebrity. Hell no. Most photographers that I know, shit, when am I gonna get a celebrity wedding, man? I want that, you know, and you're totally opposite. That's
Now,
cool.
I've done a few, and I'm saying you just you just don't get the time. You don't get the time, and it's not worth the pressure. And if it's a celebrity wedding, as in big celebrities, you're competing against 20 other photographers photographing over your shoulder, through your legs, over your freaking whatever. Like, that doesn't inspire me at all. And I'd rather be happy than make more money if it meant more money. So, yeah, man. Like I said, people get that impression of me. It's just not the truth. I, I would rather get normal people making them look like rock stars than photographing rock stars. Now, don't get me wrong. If Rolling Stone rang me and said, "Hey, let's do a, you know, I want you to shoot my thing," I'd say, "Great." You know, I've photographed a few celebrities here and there, but yeah, man, I'm very happy with my clientele, very satisfied, and I'm probably more proud of the photographers booking me. It's like, you know, Gordon Ramsay comes along and says, "Hey, cook me a meal." That's pretty damn good, you know. Like, someone who's sophisticated, who knows great photography, hires me. Well, that's more satisfying than someone who doesn't appreciate it. You know,
Yeah,
people complain about spending, you know, 20 grand on me when they're spending 60 grand on flowers. I mean, that's just stupid.
that's no, you don't know. As like, you're a big influence on a lot of photographers. Let me tell you, this is a big deal for me speaking to you right now. I just have to let you know that, you know,
Thank you, mate.
your work is impeccable. You're so influential, and that's why you're one of the top photographers in the world. You know, I consider you one of the top photographers in the world. So you know what you're doing, basically. So Ryan, do you have questions? Because we have some rapid fire questions I prepared for you.
I just have one. I have one more question.
Go for it. Yeah.
Earlier when you were speaking about marketing, and that's something that's extremely important. I think it's something that's not spoke about enough when it comes to photography or just your business in general. Now, since you've been around for so long, you was here before the social media took place and stuff like that. What How has marketing changed, and what have you done to make sure you keep up with it? Considering we're in a world full of algorithms, basically, what did you do to keep up with it, and how did it change throughout the years for you and
Look,
your business?
yeah, a great question. I mean, marketing for me, when I built a very large brand in Australia, we probably built one of, if not the largest studio brand in Australia, wedding and portraits. I was relentless. I was hungry. I mean, you know, it's also, you're younger, you sort of want to prove yourself to the world, and you want to, you know, rule the world, as in you just want to make a mark, you know. Um, we were on the back cover of all the bridal magazines. Like, that was my thing. I wanted the back cover. That was prime real estate. So I wanted the back cover of all the magazines. And at one point, we got a full house. We had 11 magazine covers. Or every second or third cover of a bridal magazine, I photographed the covers. I would photograph the fashion editorials within it. I had my photographs framed in many countless reception venues all around Melbourne. Bridal designers all around Melbourne, all that kind of stuff. My favorite form of marketing, probably even to this day, is a same-day slideshow. So back in the digital days, in 2000, 2001, I did my first same-day slideshow where I photographed the wedding, picked my favorite photographs, put them together as a slideshow to music, and then presented a slideshow. And then people just freaked out because I'd never seen anything like it. And I would give business cards like it was going out of fashion that whole time. So that's to this day is an incredible form of marketing. A lot of pressure. If you're shit at that, don't do it because you don't want to give a bad impression on the night of the wedding. So building relationships has always been my thing in person. And, you know, I'm 48. I in many ways, I feel like like one of those old school photographers who sound old school. And in many ways, I feel very progressive, that I'm always at the forefront of technology in terms of doing broadcasting and all the things that we do in our studio. So obviously social media is a big part of it, but I think I developed enough of my reach within a certain kind of clientele to get the work that I want and what I need without going ridiculous by, again, forming relationships. Social media is great, but again, if you guys follow me, you'll probably see months of breaks that I have. And I said this earlier in a broadcast today, where sometimes I have social media breaks for my own mental health. I just, I look at feeds and it just gets me in a shitty place. And I'm like, I'm never in that way. I'm like, there's too much noise. Let me just focus on my own shit. I don't need to prove it to anybody. Like I've probably produced some of the best work in my career in the last 2 years and no one has seen it, which is totally fine. Now, will I share it? Yes. And will you see it at different conventions and in-person workshops? Yes. But I'm not desperate for validation, and I'm not saying in an egotistical way. It's quite the opposite. I just love the creative process. And with all the haze of social media, I think too many of us are wasting too much time on social media. Like people are complaining about marketing and they haven't got much work and they're spending 3 hours a day freaking looking at TikTok and cute puppy videos. I'm like, well, okay, fine. My wife does that, and I love cute puppy videos. I could happily watch them for an hour each day, but that gives me joy. If I look at other photographers being angry or shouting or being negative and just being shitty, that does not contribute to and give me value to my life. Therefore, let me take away the temptation. I'm not even going to look at a Facebook feed. And I very rarely do. And people say, Jerry, like, didn't you know? I'm like, no, I haven't looked at Facebook for freaking 6 months. And there's times where I will post but not look at anything, as in I'm not going to look at my feed. I'll just, or I might go directly to someone that I care about's feed. But I've just learned to cut out the haze. And sometimes it's not a bad thing, because if you oversaturate people, you give no time for anyone to miss you. So it's somewhat strategic as well. People miss you, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, new work or whatever. And that's fun too. So, yeah.
We have a question here. Where is it? Do you shoot medium format for your magazine covers? Mike Farrell.
No, I haven't shot medium format for a very, very long time. At one point, I was shooting with the Phase 1, P40 Plus, I think it was. I can't remember the actual camera, but I did toy with that for a little bit. It's obviously an expensive camera to toy with, but no, there hasn't been a shoot where they've said you have to shoot medium format. And if they did, I would go rent one and do it. But with the cameras these days, I mean, gee, you see shot with iPhone, those billboards are going around. Obviously, they're always far away, and from far away they look good, and from, they're good from far, but far from good, but and that's fine. But yeah, I don't know if that would be necessary in my world. I got a cover of a local magazine in Vegas, and that was more than enough files and everything. I think a lot of us love the pixel peeping, but I think a lot of it's not necessary these days in a digital world. A lot of things don't even go to print. It's mostly digital, right? So it's pretty sad. There's less physical stuff going out these days.
Yeah, I have one more business question, and we'll get to the rapid fire ones. All right.
Sure.
Put yourself in regular photographer shoes. I'm not saying someone of your stature. They make a living full time as a wedding photographer. Now, as you know, there's off season in the wedding business. What advice would you give that person that does full time weddings that relies on the income that he's making? And I'm not talking about someone famous, just a regular, photographer that makes a good living, decent living. Do you recommend them doing what in the off season, or saving up the money? Or that's a good question Ryan brought up one of our talks. So I thought I'd, ask
That's
you
a
that.
perfect question. Yeah, I'm going through that right now.
Look, I believe focusing on one genre specifically is a blessing and a curse. You're known for a particular genre, you become the king or the queen of that world in your zip code or state or country or whatever it may be, and that's all you're known for. Now, if something happens like a pandemic or winter where it's snowing in your part of the world, then your whole world stops. Now, can you maximize the sales of your existing clients and fulfill album orders, album plans, enlargements, whatever? Absolutely. But if you're twiddling your thumbs for 5, 6 months, you think about it like it's a very nichey thing. Now, you could very, very easily graduate to doing portraits, which are extremely profitable. You don't have to wait for 6 months beyond the booking to shoot it. It's instant. It's almost instant, and it's a similar skill set. Now, would I shoot newborns today? Hell no. I have no interest, and I won't be able to compete with the photographers out there that do it and do it very well. That's been popularized by Ann Geddes and repopularized by the likes of Kelly Brown, a friend of mine, and many others. It's just not me. So, but do I do portraits of families in the way that I like to do it, and adults and couples and commercial fashion? Well, yes, like why wouldn't I use that skill set to do this? And you don't put all your eggs in one basket. I mean, every business book will tell you don't have just one income stream, because if you do 10 weddings a year or 20 weddings a year, and next year you do 18, you've lost 10% of your income. That's a massive deal. So you have to sort of just be logical about business and not be too picky. Now, when you say, it's funny was when you say about me being high profile or whatever, I consider myself on, this is not me being even humble or false humble. I have everyday challenges just like everybody else. I've got to pay the bills. I've got to hustle for the work. I've got to maximize my sales. I've got to do SEO on my website. I've got to do all that stuff. So, the same challenges apply to every single person. I've spoken to fellow ambassadors that they said that, they used to photograph for National Geographic and Sports Illustrated, and now these entities have gone, and they're competing with 20-year-old photographers photographing on an iPhone for the same kind of jobs that they'd be doing in the past. So the world has changed, and often you don't get booked because you're the best or perceived as the best. You get perceived because you get hired because you're the right person for the right job at the right time through a relationship. So my concept is do other genres because it's low-hanging fruit. Learn portraits is a very different entity than photography from a business perspective, because with weddings, you're trying to sell an album and wall art. With portraits, you're probably trying to sell both as well, but it's a different pricing structure, different conceptually. There's a whole methodology there. It's what do you say? When do you say it? How do you say it? How do you handle objections? There's so many things that you need to understand, and that just takes time and experience. But also, like right now, it's amazing to me that people are suffering in photography and they're changing careers. And I'm asking them, like, well, hey, how many weddings have you shot? And they'll send me 150. And I'm like, well, have you just shot JPEGs for them? They said, yes. I go, did you ever think about ringing them back or emailing them or texting them and saying, hey, we have a special on a 50 image album, and let's convert your JPEGs into a beautiful legacy for your family. So you could maximize sales from your existing clientele, but you assume they just want JPEGs. Well, we know that that's all bullshit. People think they want JPEGs because they just want them on social media and whatever they want, but then they start seeing prints on the walls, and then the mortality, your feeling of mortality grows when the pandemic hits and almost 1 million people have passed away in America alone and all that stuff. Like you want that physical print and legacy. Out of 150 people, if you rang, emailed, or texted 150, 10% upgrade to an album. That's basically 15 who spend $3,000 with you. well, shit, like it's, it's 45 grand. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you convert the people who have bought albums for you and upgrade to wall art? But that means hustle. That means getting on the phone. That means working. And people are lazy. Let's just face it. People are lazy. People expect delivery because people are conditioned through social media that I want things now. If you've got any question in the world, you can get it answered within seconds. And therefore, if I can't get things today or tomorrow through Amazon Prime or whatever, I believe I'm not winning if I have to work for my money or I have to work for my clientele. It's bullshit. So, people got to get off their ass and do something about it. They got to, get off it and start pretending this is a real, a real business.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned social media. Sometimes I just want to shut my phone off and just, go away for 2 hours because you were always on the phone. But we need it, I guess. This is the sign of the times.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, man. Like, trust your gut. If you're, you can block notifications at a certain time. You can schedule that. Mate, live your life, man. Like this time, like my nephew and niece will be on their phone. I'm like, here, give me your phone. I don't want to, like, you could be on your phone all year. I want to see your face. I want to have some fun. I want to share some dreams with you. I want to have some laughs, or I want to dance spontaneously. I want to, whatever I want to do. So yeah, man, trust your gut. There'll always be an email to wake up to. There'll always be a phone that you may have missed a call, but trust me, they'll be waiting for you in the morning. But your family will grow up. Your partners will be missing you. And then all of a sudden you think, what have I done with my life? I've been spending half my life thinking that everyone else's life is perfect and my life isn't. And therefore I'll feel hollow for most of my life. Like, screw that.
Ryan, do you have one more question or should we start?
No, we should start. We can start.
Right. If there was one genre of photography, this is not part of the rapid fire, but I'm curious. If there was one genre of photography, short answer, that you would just want to spend one day doing just to try it out and see, for example, sports or
that I haven't done or
that you haven't done, like combat photography, quick story. One of your big fans, Paul Connors, F5 saved his life in combat. So is there he bashed it over some.
I heard that story. It's a bit graphic, but it's pretty amazing, that story. What kind of photography would I like to do? Look, probably concert or sports. I'd say that it'd be one of those two. I'd probably say, but yeah, concert or sports, but I'm not talking about just concert. I'd say portraits of those stars back in the green room just before they go on stage or after or something like that would be really fun.
Someone's asking you, where's Louis Pang?
Louis Pang from Malaysia. He's been out of action. Yeah, he's been out of action for a little while. I don't really know. He did my workshop 10, 12, 13 years ago. I can't remember now. But yeah, he's been off the grid for a while, so I'm not too sure.
All right. So you ready to some real quick questions, quick answers?
Good.
All right, here we go. Your dream gig.
Already doing it.
All right, good answer. Ryan, if you have one, shoot it.
I can't think of one.
Okay. If you think about it, go ahead. Dream portrait subject, like person, who and why?
Dead or alive?
Both. It doesn't matter.
Jesus. You can't think of a cooler portrait than Jesus, so that'll be pretty cool. And then I'd probably say recently, again, before he passed, I would have loved to have photographed Robin Williams. I think that would have been amazing.
Yes.
I think someone like that would be incredible. James Brown, I think, would have been amazing. I can't really think of anyone alive that I'm like, dying to photograph per se. I think that, don't get me wrong, Bruce Springsteen would be incredible. Chris Stapleton, again, I'm obsessed with, and stuff like that. Would I say no to Angelina Jolie asking for a beautiful fashion shoot? No.
Nice. Kim Kardashian?
She's a gorgeous girl. Yeah, people hang shit on that family. I think they're the most influential family in the world. You got to give credit where credit's due. So yeah.
Business.
Yeah. Robert Williams is definitely would have been a great one. Definitely.
Yeah, genius. Absolute genius.
Yes,
Yep.
1000%.
Well, I'm a rocker. Favorite rock band? Rock.
Oh man, Queen I think is right up there for me. Queen. Queen.
Queen. Oh,
I
nice.
saw Queen with Adam Lambert, and even though it's not Freddie, man, could he sing and hold his own? And the respect that he gave to Freddie, and with Brian May and all the others, like in Vegas, one of the best concerts I've ever been to. So I would probably say Queen. And even recently, a bit cliche and old school Beatles. I saw Get Back on the Disney Channel. That was pretty fascinating to watch that. Bon Jovi, U2, some obvious ones in there. But yeah,
Nice. PC or Mac?
oh, definitely Mac.
All
Yeah.
right. USA or Australia?
My heart, like I said, is here. My brain is over there, so I'll probably live there mainly for most of my life. I think when I deteriorate health wise, I'd probably come back here because health system in the US sucks.
Your
So,
favorite.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
if I miss Australia, I'll just go to Outback Steakhouse. It's exactly the same thing.
Your favorite your favorite all around Nikon lens. All around.
24 to 120 f4.
Nice. And your favorite lens of all time?
Probably the one that I'm using right now. And it's a lot for me to say that because my favorite lens for years was 70 to 200 2.8. The one on me right now, the 85 millimeter f1.8. It's light. It's just predictably sharp at the shallow depth, probably more than any other lens that I've ever used.
I try to
So
tell
yeah, quick.
people about that lens. And Jonathan, I don't know if you're still in these comments, but listen, he just said the 85 1.8, okay? Because he keeps saying that it's not a real professional lens if it's 1.8. And I'm like, you gotta, he doesn't, he's not with the Z, he still shoots with the 850. So I'm trying to tell him it's one of the
Well, I mean,
best lenses.
yeah, I mean, affectionately, I mean, Joe McNally and I were commissioned to photograph each other a few years ago, showing off that very lens. And I photographed him, he photographed me. So there is a bit of sentiment there. But taking even that aside, I'm saying like when you would photograph with a 1.4 lens, 1.2 lens, you would rattle off 10 shots and hoping that one's in focus, as in crisp on the eye that's close to the camera. Whereas this, I can comfortably shoot a family at 5.6 and then shoot a bride at 1.8. To be honest, I got to say that 1.2 is beautiful for film. For photography, I mean, you're barely getting one part of the eye in focus, depending on how close you are to it. So it's a blessing and a curse. And also, you're paying a ridiculous amount more money for that extra 0.4. So I'm very pragmatic. I will never tell you buy the sharpest lens of everything. I'm like, work out what you do and how much are you going to use that shallow depth of that lens and buy your lenses accordingly. Like the 24 to 120 is more than enough for me. I don't even think I'll use a 24 to 70 after I get the new 24 to 120 because I very rarely use a 24 to 70, let alone at 2.8 if I'm not doing filmmaking. So you gotta just look at what you do, what genre that you do, and what's best for
Cool. Got three more real quick. Flash or LED?
it.
One
Well, you're
word.
asking you're asking the inventor of the ice light. So I will
I know.
say so I'm gonna say LED.
All right. All right. How's that going, by the way? Good. The iSight.
We're working on version 3 at the moment. So we're very excited about that. Ice Light
Ice
3. Well,
Ice Society.
yes, that was my former name of my training site. So
That's
yeah,
cool.
Ice Light or Ice Light as the Americans would say.
Oh man, that's so cool. That's so cool when you bring in the American accent there.
Yeah, it's a bit
Modern,
nasally.
modern exotic Ferrari or classic 50s Corvette?
Neither. I don't care about cars. Can you fit a 9 foot paper roll in there? No.
You're an SU, you're a van or SUV guy. All right. How about a
I'm
G wagon? How about a G wagon
well
for Jerry?
a Ghionis wagon.
Yeah.
No, I have I have a black Suburban. So for me, I'm yeah, I'm over the sexy car days. I've had a few cool cars in my time, but now I want comfort and I want space to do fashion shoots and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, man, I don't care about that shit anymore.
And and the final one, bombshell beautiful bride with an LED or average looking bride with an amazing available light.
I care more about the personality and the energy of the person. So if I had both, fine. It doesn't really matter to me. Yeah, I don't really care.
All right. That was
Yeah.
awesome, man. Well, thank you, Jerry. By the way, do you speak Greek?
I do speak Greek.
Ghionis.
Yeah, see?
No, I don't. I just know that. I love Greek food. I like the Greek music. Z level.
Zilevo Bully. That's awesome. Do you speak Armenian?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
So.
Ryan, do you speak American or just English?
American, Southern American.
Southern American. Oh, that's awesome.
Well, I want to thank your wife, Melissa, for helping us out, putting this thing together. Thank you. Shout out to your wife. She's awesome.
She giggled. She's on the right of me. Yeah, she's my pimp, man. If you want me, you got to go through her. So
yeah, that's awesome. I wish you the best. You're back, and get you good health. Wish the best for you, man. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the time and appreciate the connecting. And I know I'm very passionate about what I say, and I talk a lot. But if you ask the questions, man, I'll never be short of answers. So I know I'm a little bit chatty, but that's who I am. So now that you know that, you can allow more time next time we connect.
And
oh no, I'm good.
You got to give us a rock and roll. Rock and roll.
Well, see, here's the thing, right? You'll never ever get someone who has perfectly even, because I'm actually missing a finger here. Like,
oh wow.
So when I do this, it's perfectly even. So you'll never ever get that from probably any other guest.
Still look good though. That still look good.
Yeah, man.
I want to thank everybody for joining us on the chat. You guys rock, and of course our special guest Ryan. Of course,
thank you for having me.
VAHAGRAPHY Talk number 15 in the books with special guest, the legend, Jerry Ghionis.
What? Melissa's laughing. What are you laughing at? Like 5 seconds behind you. Oh, you should.
Hey man, you're a rock star in the wedding photography community, man. So seriously, and I'm so happy that you're approachable. One time I met Nikki Six from Molly Coon. He was an ass, and I love that man.
Well, it's all good, brother. I appreciate the time, appreciate the opportunity. Thank you to everyone who's watched, and whether it's now or in the future. So thank you so much.
All right, guys. All right. Thank you. Rock and roll.